guess what today is? Well, you know, because you read the episode title. But we are going to do another Q&A. I had so much fun doing the last one, and there was such a great response. After that one, I've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. If you have questions and want to keep this format going, check out the link in the show notes and go ahead and submit your question. It can be completely anonymous. I don't have to know who you are. Nobody else has to know, because I can almost guarantee your question, you're not the only one. Remember in school when the teacher would ask, does anybody have a question? And you'd be too embarrassed to raise your hand and ask that question. Well, I'm going to encourage you to not be embarrassed and to raise your hand and go ahead and ask that question. And again, no one's going to know it's you, because I can almost guarantee that somebody else has that very same question. So let's get into it. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where we talk anything and everything homeschool and all that encompasses the homeschool lifestyle. I'm your host, Leigh Nguyen. I'm a mom who never intended to homeschool, and suddenly I am here, 14 years later, with 2 homeschool graduates and 1 more to go. No matter where you are in your homeschool journey, Little by Little Homeschool seeks to empower and encourage you to carry out this amazing calling of home educating and discipling your children. It's not always easy, but I'm here to walk alongside you, because I promise that these years are worth all of your effort. Grab that load of laundry that needs folded, settle in at a kitchen sink to wash those dishes, or tie up those walking sneakers, and let's get into today's topic. Today's first question says, I desperately want to home educate our kids, but our family really needs me to contribute financially, even with cutting our expenses as much as we can. With young kids, we're struggling to figure out how I can work and be home with 3 little kids. Do you have any advice on how we can make this work? She says, your input is much appreciated. You are welcome. First, there was an episode I did do about working part-time during the homeschool, and I will link that in the show notes for you. So I encourage you to listen to that to kind of, beef out this answer a little bit more. There are going to be times where no matter what you do, and I know I've heard financial advice. I remember when my husband and I, there was times things were so tight, and God always provided. I'm not saying don't go and work, but there were times where it was so tight and groceries would show up. Someone would say, my mother-in-law would give us stuff. There would just be things would you like this? Or why don't someone invite us over to dinner or something like that? Like, oh, that was nice not to have to do that. And so I know that there were times, because sometimes we'd hear advice, be like, well, so this one always got to me. It'd be like, well, if you cut out that coffee that you got every day, and that was back when maybe coffee was $5. So like, instead of going to Starbucks and getting a coffee 5 days a week, you could save, $25. I'm like, we don't go to Starbucks. And I'd be like, well, if you don't go out to the movies or don't go out to eat. And I'd be like, we don't do those things. It got to the point where we didn't do those things. And I was like, we've cut out all the things that we can. And things are very, very tight. And I really think that there is a season for a lot of us that things just really are tight, and you want to make it work, and you want to homeschool your kids. And I'm going to tell you that it can work. It's going to take some creativity. Listen to that episode, because I'm going to talk to you in that episode about how to get more ideas on how to do this creatively. But maybe look into, what are your options? Homeschool does not take the entire day. Homeschool is just a part. So depending upon your age of your children, yes, there are ages where they are going to need to be watched, or some of them, at all times. Someone's going to need to know where they are. When you have teens and you're like, okay, I need to do a part-time job, maybe it's from home, and you know where they are, they're around the house, and you're just kind of working on your computer. It's something that you can just do on your off time or certain hours. That's very different than when you have little kids who you need to keep safe. And so the option might be, maybe there's something in the evening that you can do, whether it's outside of the home or from home and dad is home. Do you have family, or do you have friends? Can you even, with maybe a friend, maybe family might be say, okay, yes, I can watch the kids and they're not going to charge you anything. But maybe with a friend, you say, hey, would you be able to watch them for 2-3 hours, 2 mornings a week, and then I'll take your kids another day or 2, so that it does feel like an even type of swap with them. So that might be an option as well. But there might be times where you do have to step out and do something. And it is possible to homeschool in all different situations. Is it going to be easy? No. You just have to decide if it's going to be worth it or not. So explore your options, be open to a lot of things, spend time in prayer, ask God to lead and to guide you and to provide you with wisdom and to provide you with a solution. Next question is, what advice or recommendations do you have for building homeschool community? I live in an area that has, she has in air quotes, really good public schools. I'm struggling to find anyone else who home educates. We also live in a place that has a really good public school. Remember when we were looking to move here, I guess it's been 6.5 years we've been here. And, realtors were like, oh, this is a really good school district. I'm like, great, that'll be really good for resale value if we ever decide to move. I was like, okay, that's good. But I can see that as well. Even in my neighborhood, I don't know of any other homeschoolers. And I have said I have taken walks. I'm like, ooh, there's a mom with little kids. And I get closer and I realize, oh, it's my one friend that does homeschool that I know her from outside of necessarily homeschooling. I know her from just like the Christian community, and she homeschools and has little kids. So I can completely get that. When we began homeschooling, I had one friend that homeschooled. Slowly, our church started homeschooling more. So start looking. And I don't mean to be like, well, maybe try to convert some people. Talk to your friends about homeschooling and tell them what you're doing and expose them. And it might be something new to them. And so you might begin to be able, I feel like in the beginning, we created our own community because I began to convert some of my friends, or they just saw us. And maybe I wasn't a part of that at all. For some of them, yes. I remember them coming and talking to me and walking them through everything. So when it comes to meeting locally, I do have an episode, I'm pretty sure, about making friends. And we can find other homeschoolers, but not all the time do we align. And at first, it might feel like I don't really care what their beliefs are, what their values are, what their purpose is for homeschooling. I just want other people. But oftentimes it begins to be revealed after a while. You might be like, I don't really want my kids hanging out with those kids because they're picking up on bad habits, or they're teaching things that are completely opposite of what I'm teaching them. So it is eventually important to find people that you're aligned with, not because we want to live in a bubble, but because we want to be encouraged and we want to be able to get ideas and bounce ideas and feel like the environment and the friends and the community that you have is supportive of what you are doing and how you are doing. So one thing you can do is to get onto good old Facebook and go ahead and type in, maybe if your county or your area is known for something, maybe you're like Northwest Michigan, maybe that's just kind of what people call it. Go ahead and look up Northwest Michigan homeschoolers. Maybe it's a city. You can put in the city and homeschoolers and just start searching for different groups, possibly on Facebook, where maybe you can find others and be able to connect, find where maybe there's field trips. When we first moved, that's how I found out about other things and got involved in things. Another option would be maybe to, I don't think that churches are going to go and give you people's information, but maybe if you called and said, hey, are there a bunch of homeschoolers that attend your church? Because I'd like to meet some. They might say yes. You might say, okay, do you have any groups? They might say, yes, actually, a lot of them come to our Awana. And you might say, perfect. When is your Awana? What is the time? Can we join and be able to meet others? If you meet one other homeschooler, ask that homeschool mom to introduce you to other homeschool parents as well. Find a co-op. You might say, well, I don't really want to do a co-op, but go do the co-op for being the opportunity to meet other people. Next question is, what advice for inspiring a love of reading? This is a good one. Both of my children can read fine for their grade levels, so they're grade 6 and grade 2, but neither one seems to want to read on their own. They will read when I tell them to, but rarely will they pick up a book on their own time. So she says that their screens are limited already, so it's not that reading is replacing their screen time and that they're upset about that. They both just love to play and don't seem overly interested in reading for pleasure. I want them to experience the joy of reading, but don't want to push them to the point where I've made it into an issue. With some kids, yes, if we push it, then yes, they are going to then push back and they aren't going to enjoy it. For my kids, I'm just going to tell you what I did, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience, is that I had some required reading during our homeschool time. So I would maybe pick a book, or I would have a stack of books or a couple of books that I wanted them to read during that homeschool year. And sometimes I would give them the option of picking the order for that. Sometimes they didn't care. Some kids were like, I don't really care. Just tell me which one. And so during homeschool time, some years and some kids, you really have to look and see, I would say, I want you to do 15 minutes of reading or 30 minutes of reading of your book and see how far you get. Some kids, I would say, because in that, say, 15 minutes, they would just dawdle and read maybe 3 or 4 pages. And I knew that they could read more. So I say, okay, so, I see how you're playing the game here. And so then I would say to them, you need to read chapters 1 and 2. And so whether that would take 15 or 30 minutes, they had to accomplish that. So that's kind of how I approached it in some ways, because I wanted them to read good books. And it was just like, this is just a part of what we're doing. And so they just were at their ages, and my kids, and maybe it was their personalities or just the way I approached homeschool, they were like, okay. And they were usually fine with it. And I really tried to get books that I thought would be a common ground, like a good book that I wanted them to read. Sometimes there's books out there we know that our kids are going to like. They just might not be attracted to it by the cover or not think that they're going to like it. There's a lot of books that my kids read, and afterwards they're like, yeah, that was pretty good. I'm like, yeah, see, I told you. So that could be an option. Read to them. Do some type of morning time, or at least let them play while you're reading to them. Find some books that you think that there's going to be great books that will attract a second grader and a sixth grader. And so read to them while they're playing during your morning time, or read to them if they're playing in the afternoon. It doesn't even have to be during your, we'll say, homeschool time during the day. Audiobooks, you might be tired of reading to them, or they might be like, I don't really want mom coming in while we're building with Legos and reading. Get audiobooks. I mean, there's a lot of different options of how to play them. It used to be you had to have, iPads and that kind of stuff, be able to listen to it. I mean, way back, my kids had these little things and they thought they were cool. They thought it looked like a little iPad or something like that. But they have those Yodos. I think those are super cool. They weren't around when my kids were little, but that might be an option as well. So audiobooks might be something that'll help introduce them. I'm going to tell you right now that I believe that everybody enjoys stories. Not everybody loves to read. My husband, I'm going to out him right now. You won't see him with a book in his hand. That's just how he is. But he's fine to listen to stories. He'll listen to audiobooks. He'll read other stuff, but he's not going to pick up a book. It's just not a part of him. And I have seen with my kids that it is a big part of some of their lives. My daughter loves books. It's been a huge part of her entire life. But the boys, not as much. I mean, to different degrees. And they know they have that option. I have tons of books for them to go ahead and read. And they'd rather do some other things. So I think that also we have to take into consideration their personalities. I do have some books about reading, and I have some episodes, as I'm talking about books, and I will link that in the show notes. Next question says, I've always been screen hesitant, but I see a need for my oldest, who will be starting grade 7 in the fall, to gain some computer experience. Do you have any program recommendations or anything that would be a good way to help her learn skills, but not have her in front of a computer for her whole homeschool day? I do have some ideas, and maybe I was a bit of a prude when it came to it. I had a reel that I put out on Instagram, and then it went to Facebook. On Facebook, I got a lot more traction and a lot more negative comments. I know we're all shocked by that, but it was just like, it was just a trend that was going around, like propaganda I'm not falling for or something like that. And that was one of the things. I forget exactly what I put, but people commented like, how can you withhold your child from technology, from having their own smartphone? I think specifically until they were 17. They will, the one guy was like, you're hamstringing them. I'm like, what are you talking about? By 19, I had one of my kids running a complete business from his phone. I think they're going to be okay. So I took more of the approach, my husband and I, a little bit more prudish when it came to it, because I was like, I just want them to have a childhood. And I have not found any kid that can't figure things out. Now, my 17-year-old got we had a Gab phone for maybe a year. We did get him now. He has we'll say a smartphone. He has an Apple phone. We just needed the tracking, and he needed be able to do Google Maps and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of, he can't get on the internet. He can't download apps. There's no social media on there. So, but the funny thing is, so my phone is on a lock. I mean, they don't know. I know in a lot of families, kids know the passwords. I believe that the passwords need to be private. That's a whole other conversation. So if I've had trouble on my phone, I'm like, why is this? What is this popping up? I've given it to him. He's like, oh, if you just go there. I'm like, how do you know this? He's like, I don't know. You just kind of whatever. I think that some kids are just going to naturally figure it out. Our daughter really didn't care much, but she has her phone all figured out. She knows how to do more than I even do, because I'm kind of like, I don't really care. I just want to do the basics. So all that to say, I don't have a problem with taking things slow. And it's okay if you're feeling like, oh, I'd like to give her some experience when it comes to the computer. then go for it. But don't feel like you have to jump in and give them free access to everything. So I love that you want to start getting her into things and then, but not being on there all the time. That's totally was my approach as well. The first thing I would say to have her start doing is to do some type of typing class, like learning where to put, where's home row, where are all the different things. So there are some great sites out there. When my daughter, we had to buy like a CD-ROM and install it. We had multiple computers we had to reinstall it on. And so by the time it came to my youngest, I was like, you're going to do this program that I have because I bought this CD-ROM for like $70. And now, 7 years ago or something. But now you can find things probably even free online. So I would say start with just typing and then go from there. Because once you can do typing, you can maybe then have her start writing some papers on Word or something like that. One of the things I really wanted my kids to finish up their homeschool with was understanding all of the different Microsoft programs. So I did find some courses, and they know more about Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Is there another one? Maybe. Whatever all of those are. I did include that in their homeschool day, and they went through these different courses because I wanted them to know how to do it. And my kids, all to a degree, have used these things. My 20-year-old who runs his own business, he uses Excel spreadsheets all the time for all kinds of things. And I'm barely over here trying to keep track of my business finances on it. And it looks like, a caveman's Excel spreadsheet. So I think there's great benefit in that. So I would just start off with something like that, with typing, learning the different Microsoft programs, and then maybe get into something fun, like introducing her to Canva and having her, do things maybe a little bit more artistically, and that would be a little bit more fun. All right, we are going to squeeze in one more question. If your question has not been answered, I will get to it next time, I promise. And if you have a question, make sure you check out that link in the show notes and go ahead and submit that question so you can get in the next time. Last question is, I am just starting out with a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. My biggest concern is how to juggle all three during the day when I feel like I'm needed significantly by all of them. Honey, you are. You are needed very significantly by all three of them, possibly all the time, at the same time. But she goes on and says, how do I keep the younger children, in air quotes, entertained while doing lessons with the older child? So you have a 5-year-old. Your 5-year-old's main goal this homeschool year is to play and is to learn through play. I would encourage you to read. Hopefully to the 3-year-old and maybe the 1-year-old, if they'll sit there and they're not chewing on the books, or even if they're chewing on the books, I would say read to all of them. Picture books. They're not going to be into chapter books yet, but read tons of picture books and talk about the world. And so there doesn't necessarily have to be a time where your 5-year-old is segmented away from the other two. I know that we can get so excited about homeschooling and kindergarten, but if it's not possible to do all the worksheets or the workbooks and all the lessons and all the cute little resources that are out there, your 5-year-old is going to be fine. But maybe your 5-year-old is showing interest and wants to do some things, and you are just so excited and you really want to do it. Then go ahead and do that. 15, 20 minutes a day, max. Does a 3-year-old take a nap and the 1-year-old take a nap? Maybe they coincide during their nap. Or maybe you might say it's more important for the 3-year-old to be occupied, and there's maybe some way you can have them occupied, or maybe they take a nap in the afternoon and the 1-year-old doesn't take a nap at the exact same time. Because you might say the 3-year-old's all over, but the 1-year-old is just going to be kind of climbing on you. Maybe you're still breastfeeding. I don't know. And you can just do 15, 20 minutes with the 5-year-old. And you can go ahead and do that. You have my permission. But don't feel like you have to sit down and do any type of program with your 5-year-old if it's just not possible. When you're looking at this homeschool year, you have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year-old. I'm not trying to fast forward time too fast for you. But a year from now, you're going to have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. It's going to look a lot different. So if you are not teaching your 5-year-old how to read this year, your 5-year-old is going to be fine. Absolutely fine. It's okay to slow down. Maybe your 5-year-old is wanting to learn things. And you might say, you know what? I don't really have time during the day. And in the evening, my husband is home. We just don't want to do that. Or the 5-year-old just kind of burned out and tired from the day. Maybe on the weekends, on a Saturday or Sunday morning, you just maybe pull out a book and you just kind of work on some of the blending of letters and introducing some phonics. You can do things how you want to do them. And you can do them in a way that's slow. And I promise that you are not setting your child up for failure. Play is the number one way that they are going to learn at this age. All right. I hope that those answers were Good. It really just was what kind of popped into my head. These are kind of fun episodes. I don't have to do a lot of planning, but I really hope that they encourage you. And I think that if you have a question that you'd like me to answer, I can almost promise you someone else has that same question. So I'd love to hear it from you. So check out that link in the show notes and have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If it was just what you needed to hear, would you do me a favor and share it with a friend? And if you would like to connect more, social media links and more are in the show notes just for you. I promise to see you back here real soon.